My friends and colleagues in the field of professional journalism, I'm Joseph P. Firmage. Some of you may have memories long enough to know how frequently we once engaged on topics of science and technology and the cutting edge of the internet economy, and indeed on new physics. I am indeed a serious candidate for the President of the United States for 2024. I am bringing some extraordinary new ideas to the table, intellectual property, and a great base, an independent base of support that will surprise you. Indeed, you will be, I think, delightfully impressed with the endorsements that are coming my way, an independent way at a time when our nation and the world need it, and some serious science and technology experience in the Oval Office. So I look forward to engagement and a robust dialogue about ideas of the present and the future for both our nation and the globe, and beyond indeed. So please feel free to reach out through LinkedIn in a direct message. I will be responsive. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing some of my old friends and meet many new ones. We'll talk soon.
My fellow Americans, my name is Joseph P. Firmage. I am declaring my candidacy for President of the United States.
My friend, we have been engaged at Science Advanced and under my leadership 25 years to the day after we were celebrating the initial public offering of US Web Corporation on NASDAQ in the city of New York. At that time, it was a heady moment. We just gotten a wire transfer for $42 million and spent about 5 months on the process and $3.5 million up front and another $3 or $4 million to close. And that kicked off a remarkable era in my career, and that was almost to exactly one day, 2 years after the company was founded in Salt Lake City, Utah, and moved promptly thereafter in '95 to the Bay Area. 24 years ago today, I was in the town of Springdale, Utah, heading into Zion National Park in southern Utah with my parents, Edwin Brown and Gloria Paramore Firmage, who had taken me with me. We decided to make a three-party vacation for a bit down to visit that lovely park in Utah. This has been a very sophisticated endeavor that involves, a path and a trajectory that has been clearly laid out since I met with Bill Clinton in the late 90s and said, Bill, I'm going to run for president someday. And I know there's continuity of historical files on me. I'm sure since 1991, and started working with the DoD on contract, it's the size of a gymnasium, my files. So, 25 years ago, when it went public, US Web, and 24 years ago when I had just resigned, I had not stepped down. I had stepped forward and up, because I had realized that the internet economy is a robotic machine. It is the largest machine on the planet, and I am one of its principal fathers, and the principal programmer of its accounting systems through my 3,000 engineers and designers worldwide then. When I recognized the fundamental problem that over time, especially with a growth for growth's sake alone P&L programmed into every business node in the robotic economy, whether it's called Coca-Cola or Sony or Linda's Candle Shop, every accounting system has a P&L. And one of the things that concerned me so gravely was that there is no distinction between life and automation in the profit and loss statement of any business today. No distinction as to what is productive. How is the profit produced? Does it come from a machine, or does it come from life? That lack of distinction means that we human beings on current course of speed, we are destined to be competing with accelerating, computerized, Intel chip smart treadmills to run for a wage, to live and make ends meet. That race between machines and human beings is not one that we would win on the basis of strength, the basis of aggregate knowledge in any one mind or in any child's hand. And when you see the top tech sector with Jeffrey Bezos and Elon Musk, who I greatly respect and regard, it's shedding high end of the wage spectrum jobs by the tens of thousands, something is amiss. Why? And the answer is because with artificial intelligence and such, the integrated networks of the robotic economy can outperform even knowledge workers and sophisticated programmers for a wage too. Now, that's problem one. Problem two is our biosphere. I greatly feared, my number one concern back in 1998 was that this robotic economy that I was helping to create could grow to rape our biosphere outside of our control within 1/2 of a century if left course corrected. That is the principal reason I chose to step up and forward as CEO of US Web into a broader role of developing an ecosystem of companies and enterprises, institutions, that is now called Science and Medicine. One of the great triggers, of course, that helped me do so was to see a glimpse of the new feet on the footprint of the global robotic economy that could be comprised of continuous electricity producing generators attached to every home or inside every car, even every cell phone someday soon, and
that physics would also produce breakthrough propulsion that could repower every car, every plane, every bus, every train, and every spaceship to accelerate without propellant, without shooting anything out of pipes in the back, using electricity and new understandings of what space really is. An immense field of energy, which I call potentum, or potential momentum. The potential to create momentum in thrust or in wires by using that inbuilt power of the universe. Now, that was the glimpse of the way out for our to lighten our footprint. The glimpse of how to adjust the profit and loss statements of internet economy connected businesses now that they were finally interconnected would mean that we could conceivably tweak the bug fixes in the P&L statements of every business connected to the internet worldwide within a decade, which would be in time to save our biosphere before it was too late, to lengthen our stride and lighten our footprint. Do so while we have time to do so, and actually enjoy, with great joy, the ride together in doing so. It is a privilege for me to say today, my friend Christopher, that we have arrived. And with the Capital Alliance that has been connected together of over 11,000 of my professional connections that are about to now light up with the seed capital of the Platform Award for Lifetime Service that you so kindly orchestrated and organized with State and Defense, my longtime friends. With that in place, we are ready to launch the new Renaissance for humankind. The amazing things that are going to come forth here that I can begin describing it effectively immediately, but we will naturally roll out in a very paced and gentle manner, such that we don't have a TMI problem, too much information, too fast. But here's an example of where we start. Can you imagine what it will be like when we introduce a new limited liability organization, just a new checkbox in a place where you go to register a corporation into existence, or when you go to file a subsidiary if you're Walmart and you want to test this out in a dozen stores or states. But an LLO just has some adjustments to GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, guidelines for profit and loss statement. So in a typical company like an LLC, you have gross revenue, that's top line, external expenses below that, and then you have gross margin. I prefer the term net revenue, but the same thing. Then below that you have operating expenses, which are where labor gets paid. Sales and marketing, engineering, design, general and accounting, administrative, G&A, other kinds of, it depends on what kind of business you're in. And then you have an earnings before interest, tax and depreciation, EBITDA, and amortization. Then your taxes. Then you have net profit. Used to be really just focused on dividend distributions every quarter. Not all companies do that anymore because they make money just by pushing the stock up. But what I am proposing in the LLO is going to solve these two problems. Okay? And for the first time in history, because of the internet economy, we could do so on an integrated basis fairly rapidly. The net profit line, these are just guidelines. You don't have to do it. You don't have to form an LLO, but you could always form one, even if you're Walmart. But an LLO, the dividend or profit line at the bottom is moved up into operating expenses to be a peer expense with labor, like engineers, like yard workers, like payroll, even for accounting and marketing, sales. So, and you call it the cost of capital, not a dividend. It's what we pay the people who provide the capital float, the venture capital, the startup capital, or the expansion capital. They provide adequate capital resources to conduct and to initiate, conduct, and maintain the health of the business. They get paid a profit for that. That's their payroll. And it's the same, paid at the same time as labor, workers. Now, it can be up to any company to determine how much they want to pay their people versus the cost of capital. And LLOs can compete in capitalism just like any other company would, with each other and beyond. Now, that does a number of things. First, it will greatly relieve the tension between labor and capital interests. You know, like labor wars, union wars. Why? Because you get paid at the same time and they scale with each other. So, you know, it's not like one or the other gets paid, labor or profit distribution capital. No, they're paid pro-rata the same. And it's up to the P&L architects, management of capital, whoever, to determine the ratios. Okay, but profit never goes zero or negative unless you're a bad manager of the company. Okay, so nobody loses, even in a recession. Okay, so you don't have to grow or die, which is where, since the invention of computers, business has been leading. Second thing is that what can we do with the bottom line now? If you move net profit up, it's cost of capital. What is the bottom line? Well, it could even be zero, equilibrium company, you know. All you have to do is price your products, what you pay all your people and your cost of capital and taxes, and, you know, break even is perfect. It's equilibrium. You can grow or shrink for all that matters. Now, but imagine this. The price of goods and services always includes the cost of the automation, the equipment, the machinery that is involved to produce that product or service. So, if we say, all right, we're going to introduce a new bottom line term, that would be net technology productivity. Okay, in say dollar terms per period. So that a company recognized as a cybernetic organism, really a robot called Coca-Cola or McDonald's, can produce a net technology product combined to a national or gross technology product that's pooled into a new account at Treasury, the Internet Revenue Service, up here to the Internal Revenue Service. What does that mean? Pool together the productivity of the robotic economy profit and democratize it into a universal living income for first our citizens and then the world. It would start at zero or whatever I'm equipped to seed that account with for every child born in the US, starting next week, or perhaps for Christmas. I would deeply love to start that with $50 billion. But in any case, the global productivity, the global technology product is the profit made by machines. And that means that the more effective the infrastructure of robots and smart cars, smart homes, smart phones, smart whatever, that increased productivity power will go to work to pay us a living wage and work for us. Not the other way around. Because right now our trajectory is that, as these layoffs exemplify, what is their next job? Because there's not north in their lines of work, really. Unless we're now talking about the next step and last step I'll discuss on this call about economics. But this is seriously an extraordinary notion, because it will democratize the productivity benefit of automation and bring it to thicken every citizen's wallet over time, giving back time for doing more of what we love to do for work and less of slightly less of what we have to do to make ends meet, and spend more time with our families, more time. The freedom of automation clearly is time back. The most important global issue that this solves is the lack of necessity to grow for growth's sake alone, because you can't make a derivative out of GTP. It's going into the IRS, the new one, the new peer to the internet. The Internal Revenue Service collects money. Well, what if the IRS, the sister service in the same treasury, is, how many people say, hey, I just got a visit by the IRS, holy shit, and I got me a consolidated social services benefit check that integrates all my social benefits and this new living income contribution from the GTP. Who? Oh my God, I want to see the tax man. Wow, that's new. And now, by eliminating the growth for growth's sake alone tendency, what we're going to be able to do is, with an LLO, it brings us to the most significant gift that I'd like to bring to DC. It is this. The concept of creating a congressional charter account for legislation that is not generating bills, that is not a legislative bill, but is a category called a charter. It goes through the same exact process the Constitution defines for legislation signed by the President and so forth. But the difference between a bill and a charter is who pays the bill. Okay, a bill is automatically a taxpayer obligation, and in this case, what I'm proposing is that a legislative charter is paid by a congressional charter account created at the Treasury.
The future you have is so far beyond what you've hoped for, but it is in the good sense of that hope. We have an ultra clean new generation of trains, planes, automobiles, spacecraft that are coming your way very fast. We're inventing new types of engines that don't spew out exhaust through pipes of any nature